Welcome to Side by Side, a podcast where I, Robert Kwong, take you inside conversations with artists, creatives, healers, and warriors taking the charge in their transformational story. Today's guest is documentary filmmaker and founder of Cloudstreet Media, Rheanna Toy. She has worked as a producer, director, and editor on films that have screened at festivals across North America, with her debut short, Serisa 26, winning the Audience Choice Award at Cinema Spectacular. In 2025, Rheanna was chosen for Story Money Impact's POD program, where she received mentorship and training on running impact campaigns for film. Her first feature, A Place Where I Belong, was the first Canadian feature to win the Narrative Change Award at the Vancouver Queer Film Festival. In this conversation, we dive inside Rheanna's early experiences that eventually led to her path as a documentary filmmaker, juggling business with creative pursuits, and why it's important to stay with the unknown in collaborative projects. You can find more side-by-side episodes at sidebysidepodcast.podbean.com. And if you'd like to connect with me about my services, please visit www.robertkwonghome.com. Yeah, I've spoken with other filmmakers and documentarians, and that's partially why I'm so excited to, have someone who's willing to record a conversation. Because, as I was saying, I think filmmakers and particularly documentary filmmakers are really interesting personalities. So I kind of am curious about that, of like the world of specifically documentary filmmakers. So it's an honor to have you here, Rheanna.
It's an honor to chat with you. I don't even know what to say. Documentary filmmakers I don't know. I mean, myself personally, I know I've been called eccentric by many people in my life. But yeah, from the documentary filmmakers I've met, I think it is a very particular personality, or like there's something that sort of draws you to it. I think documentary filmmakers are quite different from narrative. But yeah,
I
it's
want
a
to
very
ask you about
interesting.
that.
I don't know, like, if I've met enough documentary filmmakers yet to say there's like one thing I've really noticed, but I can tell you like my perspective or how I approach it. But I think, okay, one common trait is a lot of times people want to make a difference.
Yeah.
So they're motivated by something intrinsically that's like wanting to make the world a better place. There's not a lot of money in documentary filmmaking. Even some of the greats, are not. They're doing pretty well, but I've even heard interviews with people like Ken Burns, for example, saying, it's still tough to pay the mortgage and do that. So that's not the motivation, right? I don't know. I think what I'm learning is good documentary filmmakers have a knack for building relationships, because it takes a lot to, I guess there's different kinds of documentary filmmakers. You have the ones that take the time to build the relationships and who are usually making work that, in my opinion, is a bit more interesting. There's also the other side where you can get people who are very exploitative. With the boom of all of that, it's become quite an industry, and I don't know if that's always approached in the best way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've talked about that, especially like my background is a little bit more closer to like things in like reality TV, right? Which filmmakers have to get work in all the time. And I just have so many questions about the culture and the ethics of the producers that work on these projects, like, because I know how much you have to really first establish the relationships, but also like these subjects knowing that this is not their like artistic project. I think to me those relationships are so sacred, and there's so much trust. And I certainly have seen different ways that people have reacted to like films and projects after it's come out, which, by the way, is completely separate from your experience that I've seen, where it's like really has to be built inside of a community and inside of trust. You know what I mean? It's almost like the polar opposite of when you talk about exploitative things happening.
I hope so. My goal is not to be exploitative. So I guess what you're referring to is my first feature documentary, which kind of came out and is doing a tour around the country, called A Place Where I Belong. and that's about, you did that article on it, so you know, but I suppose I'll provide some context for folks. It's about people who are LGBTQ plus who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, and it follows this program called CQC and sort of like interweaves their stories and their life. I tried to embed myself in their community for a number of months, and I don't know, I just always kind of approached it with like really consent based. Like I would always check in with folks and say, like, is it okay if I film today? How are you feeling today? I tried to do that as much as I could throughout the process, because I don't know, to be honest with you, I think that's just how I move through the world, and I just don't want to cause harm. And I think for a lot of documentary filmmakers, the goal is, or it means a lot if your subjects are on board with your project, and at the end too, when you show them the cut that they like it, right? Like that's kind of a big deal. I'm sure it doesn't always happen, but that's a goal that everyone can kind of be aligned with this vision, because it's not just about the filmmaker. Like actually, I suppose in some ways the filmmaker plays a small part. It's about like life that's just happening, and everyone's kind of like co-creating with their energy. So I think if people are aligned in that, aligned in the vision, aligned in the consent piece, and also kind of the interesting thing too is I think trust is so integral, because really nobody fully knows what's going to happen with documentary.
Right.
Like for myself, I don't know, I go into a project, and I mean, I haven't done that many projects so far. I feel like I'm very early on in my career, but I'm learning how I do projects. So it seems like I go into a project and have like a loose idea, but try to just let go a bit and let like life tell me what it wants to happen with that project. And I haven't been the subject of a documentary, but I'd imagine it's kind of similar. Like you have to trust the process and trust the filmmaker who's sort of like shepherding the process, because especially if you don't have a filmmaking background yourself, like it's just where is this going to go? So far when I started working with people, I've noticed there is like a lot of anxiety at first, but slowly I can sometimes get people around to that trust piece.
Yeah. I very much relate to that a little bit because of the nature of my writing work, where it's like every time you reach out to someone, you have to be willing to get any sort of response, right? It's like that. And then moving
Actually,
forward.
I want to say, because I feel like you do take that same care in your work, just from my experience of you writing the piece for Stir on the film, because I hadn't encountered journalists or media very much, but it was very clear that like your approach was just different than other people who I'd encountered. Like in a lovely, beautiful way. Like I could tell you also cared to do your best work and to hold, like even if it's just like a small, not small but short, like a short piece. There's a lot of integrity in that, I felt. So
I very much exist in that, like it's not like these relationships cease to exist. Like they still exist in the world. You will run into them later. These people matter. So I think it's very much kind of similar to you. It's just I don't care to do transactional work or things that feel transactional unless I absolutely have to. And for this type of stuff, I wouldn't put myself there and spend all that time without having some sort of something personal to me. So similar to A Place Where I Belong, I remember speaking to you and just telling you my emotional reaction of just like being a person watching your work, right? And then getting to speak to you was like so interesting and so eye-opening, because I could see the impact that the final thing was going to have, right? So in some ways, I think I caught you in like the moment of like the magic and the possibilities, right? And like not the grind, which is so rough sometimes.
Yeah, I think yours too was the first interview we did as well. So
was it? Oh, lovely.
I think it was, which was a good way to start things off. But you're right. I suppose journalists and documentarians, it's very similar, and there's both sides, right? The people motivated by, again, trying to tell the truth or put something out, and there's also like journalism that is exploitative, much like documentary. So interesting. We've got lots of commonalities.
I think so. And we all have our origin stories with that too, I think, as artists and things like that. What was growing up like for you? Where did you grow up? And like, were you always kind of creative, artistic?
Oh yeah, that's a big question for me.
Yeah.
And something I've been actually really processing, because I had a pretty rough like childhood growing up, but I always was really creative. What I was really big into for many years was dancing. Actually, I was a competitive dancer. I was really into hip hop. I was actually a B girl. So I had like,
Oh, I love it.
yeah, I know
Wait, what's
people.
your background? Are you Filipino?
No, I'm half Chinese. It's true. I'm a mixed race person, a half a
Okay.
person, so I get lots of interesting guesses.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah, my dad's Chinese, my mom is white, a mix
Mm,
of a lot of probably European
mm.
background. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, super creative with dancing and really into hip hop. I was also like teaching dance from a very young age. I really wanted
Oh,
to
wow.
pursue it. And I also wanted to be a writer. That was the other thing. When I was younger, I wanted to write fiction. Actually, at 12 years old, I wrote a novella, a fantasy novella, which was amazing. And I don't know if that was very good. I had this writing mentor, and I grew up in Calgary, and she wrote
Mm.
like youth fiction, and I don't even remember how we got connected, but she was so kind to me. Like now that I look back on it as an adult, I'm just like, wow, like she took so much care with me as a 12-year-old. Like so I had
Oh,
written this novella and she offered to edit it. So she showed me like this is what an editor would give back to you. And she'd like done like all the proper editing and like put
that's
notes on the
special.
stickies. And it was really special. And she believed in me so much. And that was such a cool experience. But like I said, I mean, I'm sure if I read that now, I would be like, this is interesting. But 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 something that I can kind of relate to is I felt like at that time when I was experimenting with writing at such a young age, it almost felt like the ideas would just come to me. Like I didn't have to really think about them. I don't
Yeah,
know if you have a similar experience,
yeah.
but I know a lot of creatives. It's almost like I want to say it's almost like a kind of channeling, but I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
want that to sound strange. But it kind of is, or like you get into a zone. Like
Yep.
actually, the company that I'm running now, I came up with the name Cloudstreet Media because cloud streets are this phenomenon that clouds will create a particular formation, and with that formation, if you're a glider, gliders can glide for like a really long time. And I was thinking that's like creativity. It's like
Mm.
you're in a flow and things just kind of like come to you, and it's not necessarily that you're attached to anything. You just listen,
Yeah.
and then you listen. And so it's interesting because actually reflecting back on that experience, I feel like with filmmaking, I'm finding that rhythm again of like listening and things
Mm-hmm.
happening, and me just being like, okay, I'm going to try and take the message and translate that to like a film edit or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's like an outlet, right? I think so many creative people
yeah,
started off kind of like discovering creativity, right? Just things that they were curious about. But I kind of hear a lot of like it was just an outlet for us. It made us feel better.
yeah. When you say it feel better, when I was saying I had a rough childhood, I had like a difficult growing up, and
Hmm.
I felt really alone. And that's when I started to find films. And I was actually really drawn to films that had this like energy of longing, which I was thinking about the other day. Like a lot of moody, sort of, a little bit of Ingmar Bergman, a little bit of like, I don't know, just moody filmmakers. And
Oh,
as a
yeah.
young person, I would just watch these either at the local like indie cinema or just in my living room alone and feel like I was connected to someone because I just didn't feel connected to the people in my life in my youth. And I think that's why I became a filmmaker, because there was something about that experience that I wanted to replicate for
Mm.
other people.
So Igmar Bergman is a big one. What were
That
some
was
early
one
ones?
then.
That's a big one for sure, I would say.
Very
And
moody,
then
very moody.
was it like, so were there particular films and directors that you gravitated towards?
I mean, some of the ones that are a little bit roll your eyes typical, like Bergman or Fellini.
Mm-hmm.
I was reflecting the other day too. One of my favorite filmmakers, who is also an artist,
Mm-hmm.
Avon Collins, who has mounted the Museum of Personal Failure, which I'm attempting to make a film about. This first time museum exhibition in Vancouver reminds me a lot of this person, and her name's Miranda July. Are you familiar with Miranda July?
Yes,
You
but I know of her
okay?
name, but I don't know if I'm as familiar with her work, so tell me.
Okay, I mean, she hasn't done a ton of films, but
Yeah.
they're quirky, they're a little offbeat, but there's like again kind of that feeling of longing in them.
Mm.
I've watched her work a lot; those ones stand out.
I think I asked that because I very much, when I first moved to America, I experienced a lot of loneliness just because of the language barrier. Just everything's new, everything's different from China. But you know what helped me get through that was like watching The Sound of Music. You know, something that didn't need the language, or so it was a lot of musicals initially, like Mary Poppins, Sound of Music. But again, those are things that wouldn't have happened without all this artists behind them, including filmmakers, performers, dancers, right, choreographers. In any case, so it's really interesting to hear people's like inspirations growing up, because I think those were some of mine. And then you start. So when did you start directing? At some point, you're like, I want to maybe do this for real. When did that happen?
I went right out of high school directly into film school. And I didn't know I wanted to make documentaries at all. I just wanted to make films. I thought, yeah, I wanted to make narrative films. And, got through film school, did okay. I don't know.
Where did you go?
I went to SFU.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah,
Yeah.
at their
Okay, great.
school for the contemporary arts, which is cool too because I experimented a lot with collaborating with the dance department because I don't know what their program's like now, but then it was really integrated with the other arts departments if you wanted it to be. I felt like most of my peers kind of stuck to film, but because I had the love for dance, I was like dabbling quite a bit.
Yeah.
And trying to make dance films and things like that. I don't know if I was clear on exactly like what my talent was or what direction I wanted to go in. I liked editing a lot. So out of film school, I picked up some editing or assistant editing contracts. And then I needed a job and I went on Craigslist of all places and found this post for a company looking for what they called an embedded journalist.
Interesting.
So I went, applied. Their application process was quite long. You had to do some work for them, which now that I'm at this point in my career, I'm like, I don't think I would do that work for free now. But I was right. so, and I think that was to my benefit because I wanted to impress them. And they ended up hiring me. And what I did is I made this web series. The point of the web series was to explain what they were doing with these disability organizations. So they're a company called In With Forward, and they do service design. So their whole thing is they're trying to design services that lift people up as opposed to being reactive, because a lot of social services are about just keeping people safe and healthy, but they don't look at like deeper well-being and fulfillment. And they were creating a stir in some organizations they were working in. So they wanted someone to document what they were doing to let the staff of these organizations know, like, why is this little company but with big energy taking over part of our organization, and what are they doing here? So, but it was through that I first realized I liked documentary, because I was on my own with my camera, so it was just me. So I had to do every part of the process and release like every 2 weeks a little episode for them, and it required a lot of problem solving. And I think what I loved most is because I love film editing so much, when you're shooting, especially as a single camera operator, you have to kind of edit in your head while you're shooting, or else you don't get the shots you need. And I learned that very quickly, because the first episode they asked me to do, I was like, oh, I missed a lot of things. I need to make this cohesive. So, and then I don't know. And then I just kept freelancing, and honestly, I could talk forever. Like, lots of life stuff happened and then kind of came back. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really like kind of like meeting real life needs that you pivoted, or like just discovered that you actually really enjoy documentary filmmaking as much as like your dream of like narrative filmmaking. And of course, people can do both as well, like so many people do. It was just like something that happened because you were looking for work. And I hear that so often, that sometimes life happens, but it can be sort of you just like never know, kind of like the Cloudstreet, right? You're just like, oh, here I am. It's kind of really cool to hear you talk about the filmmaking process, but you had to release something every 2 weeks. That sounds as close to, for filmmakers, instant gratification as it can get, because of just how long things can take. It's kind of like you really, all of the hands-on experience is really what made you the filmmaker you are.
Yeah, I've been hired for the corporate stuff, but I'll always get clients that want something that has kind of like a documentary lean. And I mean, it won't necessarily be my project. Like, they have a vision or they have an idea. Although I've been lucky that most of my clients give me a ton of flexibility. For a number of years, I was really angry because It's like I didn't become a filmmaker to make corporate, or I didn't go to film school to like make corporate work. And I had a big chip on my shoulder, like I can't actually call myself a filmmaker, and sort of seeing my peers take different routes pursuing film, and here I am growing a business. It was a choice I made with an ex partner I had, where we decided let's try to grow a business, and I naively said yes, and didn't realize that growing a business is not the same as growing an artistic practice. However, when I look back on everything, it actually makes a lot of sense that this is the path I needed to take, because all the corporate work taught me a lot about how to edit, how to shoot, how to work with people, a lot of skills that are obviously transferable to documentary. And actually, the business side, really important. I'm realizing that filmmakers and even artists in general that don't have an idea about business, they're at a disadvantage, like massively. So even though it's like not, and so it's a love hate thing with business stuff. Like I have, my dad's an entrepreneur, and I feel like I have an entrepreneurial spark, but it's like a hard thing.
I saw some organizations for documentary filmmakers and stuff that have like picked up and noticed your work. So I'm just curious really quickly, are there any places for like aspiring filmmakers, documentarians that you're like, you should go connect or like know about communities or organizations that you feel like are helpful?
Yeah, actually, I probably would like to know about those
I know,
organizations
right?
myself. I feel like I'm very new to this myself. Like I'm trying to build now my community of filmmakers, my resources, because I focused so many years on growing a business. But I'm finding like the Documentary Organization of Canada, obviously, is super helpful. They have tons of resources. They have some like networking stuff. They've got their chapters in each part of the country. And I joined because I don't know if they still have it. If you're BIPOC, you can join and get like a free year, I think. They're really great. I mean, aside from that, right now for myself, I'm just starting to meet like individuals.
Yeah.
And building my own sort of community. But I suppose the only other advice I could really give is just like tell people what you want to do, which I find so helpful. So if someone wants to make documentaries, like I actually just met someone through the museum, someone who is an exhibitor at the museum, and she told me she wants to make documentaries. So that's great. I'm like, okay, you want to come help me with this documentary? And the more people know what you want to do, the more you can kind of find like your people and networks and more resources, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you and I have some common like goals and stuff. There's a lot of my work.
Yeah.
I don't call myself a documentarian, but I always like once you have a genuine conversation about something that you care about, that can be translated to all kinds of projects, artistic or non-artistic, but it always starts with a relationship. If they have something to say, let's hear it. You know what I mean? Just make the space for them to say it. So kind of actually pretty similar to you. And it does make me wonder, how do you know when you have found something that you feel like you want to make turn into a short film or a feature? Like, when do you know it's like, okay, this is the right one and I'm ready?
Oh my gosh. Can I ask you after the same question of like how you know when you want to do
Sure.
it? Or, I
Is
don't
it like
know.
never? Because that's very fair, honestly.
I have no idea. I don't
Is it
know.
like a gut thing?
Yeah, I guess it's a gut thing or just like a curiosity. I've been told I'm a very curious person.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess it's a gut thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just something's like, oh yeah, that could be cool. Let's see. And either it happens or it doesn't, I suppose.
Like, how often do like potential ideas turn into, like a short film or a feature? I would assume there's a lot more exploring before, and we're seeing like a few of the ones that have been able to like be completed.
Oh yeah, I have started and not completed so many films. I mean, I almost didn't complete A Place Where I Belong, and I think you know this story of I was self-funding the project, didn't get any arts funding, and it's hard to self-fund something, especially when you're self-employed and you're trying to pay all your bills in an expensive city. I just couldn't do it anymore, and I wanted to do something really different than what the film was. I was hoping to do something more like you follow characters and the story unfolds. But what ended up happening is it's actually quite interview based. So there's like talking head style, but then going into like some scenes with people actually doing stuff in the world or like in the queer community. So those are the things I filmed first because I had a different vision for the film. But when it got super hard, I was going to quit, and I told the some of the people in the film that run the organization I was following. I don't think I can do this anymore. Thank you for letting me follow you. Next thing I know, I've got an email and someone said, we can definitely give you like $7,000 right now, and we're going to see if we can get you more. I was like, I'm not going to say no to money, especially as
Wow.
a filmmaker trying to, like, it's hard to get money. And I hadn't really made anything that had done that well beforehand. So I think it's hard to be on grantors' radar. And especially I'm learning as well, like you really have to differentiate the corporate or client branded work from your artistic work, because especially in the Canadian system, like their mandate is to fund artists. I am an artist, but I also run a business, but sometimes it can be, kind of conflated. So yeah, but anyway, so it wouldn't have gotten made, but I think like the universe almost stepped in and said, no, make this. And so actually it might have been more than $7,000. It was enough for me to come up with this idea of, okay, I think I can finish a film if we shoot interviews. So I'm going to spend this on interviews. I'm not going to pay myself. I'm just going to like pay for all the expenses for people to help me with interviews. And then I cut together a scene and I sent it back to that same person / organization that saw it. And they loved the scene so much, they gave me more money, and they found 2 other organizations that also chipped in. And then we made a deal, and I said, okay, you're executive producers now. This is still my project. So I maintained.
Right.
I said to them very clearly, like, you have no creative say. Like, I love you guys, but I want this. This is like, I'm going to have the final say. Because there are also organizations that I actually work with as clients. So in a different capacity. So it's kind of like flipping the relationship.
Yeah, I think it's good for people to hear that sometimes, just to kind of like confirm, to be like, there was a lot of sweat and tears. It wasn't like you just came in, sat down, filmed a bunch of people talking, and then you were done. Like, it wasn't even close to that. And like you said, right, it had kind of like several versions, and the one that you started with was not necessarily actually what the end was, but actually the end wound up being what it needed to be. And there's something about the magic of like going for the ride of a creative process like that. It also just sounds so different from prepping for like you said, like a narrative film, because most people handle these issues by prep beforehand. Every shot is listed, and I feel like none of that can really happen in documentary. Like, you don't know. Right?
No, you don't know. And I think I suspect, like, I guess I've just released this film and I'm just starting another short, and I'm trying to get now funding as well to develop some other features. So we'll see if those ones get done or if they also end up on the shelf like the many I had tried before. But I feel like a difference now, which will probably support me to actually be able to complete more things, is that ability to let go. Because I think a lot of times in the past, my projects that I started that didn't become completed, it was almost because I wasn't comfortable in the unknown. And I think in some ways I sabotaged it. Actually, the Museum of Personal Failure,
Mm-hmm.
the one I'm trying to make this short about, I was talking to one of the exhibitors the other day, and they were saying that they felt like failure is actually the experience of impatience. And I was like, that is really profound. Failure
Wow, I
is
need
the
to write
experience
that
of
down somewhere.
right? When I think about that, actually, and I think about work that I tried to make that didn't get done, I think I was too impatient. Like, I think I was just like, this isn't working how I thought it would. I don't know how to do this. I can't get support. I can't solve the problems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to shelve it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not. Maybe if I had been more comfortable with the unknown, because the other thing with documentaries, it takes so long. And sometimes you start a project and it like goes on the shelf for a bit, but you revisit it and then you revisit it and then finally it gets done, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, do you have the willingness to allow that process to unfold versus just shutting it down?
This is like the things that I think all artists grapple with. I mean, so many unfinished written things, you know what I mean? If you're a writer, like, we all have hard drives upon hard drives of that, some of us, right? That never see the light of day. And I was just curious because I do think like it takes a little bit, like, it takes real effort to go out there and film, right? But for sure that can also happen even when you have all the equipment and have everything set together. So I guess I'm just really resonating with like the tenacity of artists. Like you say, there's often not a pipeline to support documentary filmmakers. It's like you guys really have to care. it has to come from passion, or else it's not gonna go anywhere. There's no other incentive.
That's true. I want to ask you that how do you know something's worth telling? Because I kind of have this belief that some things just aren't meant to be. Like some projects are just, it's like life wants us to exist for whatever reason, or like universe wants us to exist. I'm curious if you resonate with that or not at all. What's your take?
I think the thing I pay attention to when it comes to like interviews or things where I have to write something that's based on like other things, other conversations, is like, how are the relationships? What is my experience meeting the people? What is their experience of me? Because like you said, there are times where it's like it's nothing personal, but they maybe they've had some negative experience with, like, I don't know, a press or like something said about them that they had no control over. I totally get that, but maybe like it's not the right time for me to connect with them. Do I sense like we can build trust and safety and still get the work done? If we can't get the work done inside of like trust and safety, I kind of have to like reconfigure. Sometimes you need to get something done because there's a lot of money on the line, or like you already agreed to it. At least I'm clear about that. But when it comes to like artistic things, I have to start there. It's basically like, can the relationships reflect the value I see in the work?
That makes sense. It's interesting that we keep both talking about trust. Like it's almost like trust is an integral ingredient to creativity.
Yeah, and I also think that's what gets broken when you talk about anytime you see in the creative industries like exploitation, right? That's the thing that they're sacrificing. My agenda, I would rather meet this like more short-term gain and like destroy my trust with another relationship. It's not a way to live for me. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of where I'm coming from as a writer too. Like even when I interview people, I don't know who they've talked to as far as journalists before, but this is just how I talk to
I love
people.
that. That's like maintaining your integrity, right? And your voice, which is also hard too, to like put yourself out there and trust your own voice and trust that it will be received how it needs to be received, and you can handle like criticism if it comes to you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what happened with your project. And then I wrote a piece that was about CQC and stuff, but it was because I was like, I think this topic is really important. And I haven't seen it talked about that often. You said like you go for things that you were really resonated with, like longing. And I feel like I'm always looking for things where it's like, how can we help people feel less longing and less aloneness and stuff like that? And how can we build towards that? I think a lot of your work kind of made me feel really connected to a community that I didn't feel connected to before. And I was like, that's pretty powerful. It takes a lot to change someone, you know?
Thank you. I mean, that's the goal. So hearing you say that is very reaffirming, I guess. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I hope so. I was like, I want to know about this org and the people, but what was your experience? You know, A Place Where I Belong is your first feature. It premiered at Vancouver Queer Film Festival, and it's still, I think, being seen by people. What's been the reception so far? What's been your experience after like it got released?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I do feel like a lot of people have told me that they feel like it's feeling like creating this feeling of connection for them. It is also for people who aren't connected at all to the disability community a very new topic. Actually, to be honest with you, even a lot of people who are connected, like support workers or community living organizations,
Yeah.
considering that the people they support can be queer, trans, or have sexuality, have desire for a sexual relationship, unfortunately, can be a new thought for some people. And I think it just shows how much people with disabilities have been marginalized and sort of separated from society, or sort of like the mainstream.
Yeah.
So reception's been like, a lot of people have said, I've never thought about this before. Like, what an interesting topic. Yeah, so I hope it's creating a lot of learning. And so
Yeah.
what we're doing right now as well, so it's still out in the world, it's still at festivals, but we also have this impact campaign going called the We Belong Tour. So there's this an organization I should have mentioned before about documentary filmmakers. I want to get in trouble for this. Story Money Impact. They are
Okay.
so they do impact producing work, and what that is it's like taking a film and trying to extract impact from it. So I fortunately got into their pod program in the summer, and I was working with them, and they were teaching me on how to run an impact campaign. So I was like really into it, and I went back to my executive producers who are all organizations in disability. And I said, look, we can actually make a difference with this film. It's not just about the film. With everyone's like support, we came up with these 3 goals. So our goals are destigmatize disability, make queer communities more inclusive, and make disability support organizations called community living organizations have more solutions to support people's like sexuality and gender identity and all this stuff. So then what that looks like is like big screenings for general public for goal 1, screenings with queer communities specifically for goal 2, and screenings with community living organizations for goal 3. And then pairing each screening with a talk back that's like very issues focused with a moderator that's like really unafraid to kind of poke and prod and ask people, okay, you've seen this film. Now, let's say it's like a queer organization. You're a queer organization. Why don't you have people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities at your events? And then just like see, and the interesting thing is so far, what I've noticed is that because people have watched people pour their hearts out on screen, they're much more willing to discuss what they can actually do. That actually like makes this film have more of like a lasting footprint. And then so what we're doing also is like following up with people as well and getting tangible metrics on how, like, are people actually implementing changes? Like this, we're both getting surveys, but also following up with organizations like, okay, now what are you doing? Now what are you doing? So I was mentored by the pod program and then was extremely lucky. I applied to their other program called Story to Action, where they choose 3 films and they also partner with the campaign. So I had some of my own funds raised now, and then they came on with some funds they have raised. So we're doing this big campaign, and we've got screenings, a number of screenings throughout Canada right now. We're just in the not even early stages, middle stages of planning. Some of them have already been details released. Yeah, so that's exciting.
So is that more like where the Rheanna, like your like business background comes into play? You get to sort of like get to manage this and organize this now that the filmmaking's been done. You can still kind of navigate it in a way that's like win-win, I guess. This is where your business acumen comes in to me.
I think I think it helps. I mean, impact producing is something I'm also super interested in. I think now every film I do is going to have like some sort of a campaign like this. And I am exploring with my business now, because most of my clients are nonprofits or like mission-driven businesses.
Yeah, right.
I am exploring how I can start doing this for the videos that they create with me and like offering it as a service. So more to come. I'll probably release more on that very soon once I get just a little bit more experience.
Doing like an impact campaign and things like that. I think if people haven't heard of that, I feel like that's going to make so many people's light bulbs go off. At least like fellow artists I know, where it's like, oh, this is what I've been needing to think about, because it's so you don't know what to do with the thing after you've made it sometimes, there's that feeling.
Yeah, there's so much you can do. Yeah.
So thank you for like sharing a little bit more of that and opening people to the word of that, even if they're not like strictly a filmmaker or something like that. Are there other things that you're thinking about it? Like you've mentioned some advice for like filmmakers and artists and things like that. Anything else that you want to say?
I mean, I can do some like promotions, which people should promote themselves. This is something I was talking to Avon about. Avon's gotten a lot of press for the museum, and I think for a lot of us artists, it makes us deeply uncomfortable, myself included. I think I'm like pretty good at talking, or at least that was the feedback I got from people for some of this press stuff for a place where I belong. But sometimes it's hard to center ourselves as artists, but I think maybe that's kind of where the business side comes in too, is we have to sort of like be our own hype people sometimes, or like,
I know,
putting ourselves out there, hey,
it's so cringe. I mean, it's like cringe. There are some times where you have to be your biggest fan and your biggest supporter, but like how often do we actually feel that way? You know what I mean? But it's like it kind of is true, where it's like I have been by far my biggest support. Just take that with you a little bit, because like you said, like you guys started by literally doing everything yourself.
I mean, I'm still mostly doing everything myself. I'm trying to change that. That's
You're
not
like,
true.
maybe a personality thing, actually.
maybe working on
no,
that.
That's fine. I don't want to leave you before just quickly talking about the museum person failure a little bit more. That's something that I recently saw, and I got to meet with Avon. How did you two even connect?
So Avon made a bunch of posters with like his stamps, like these very sort of, I don't know, really interesting looking posters, and put them up all over Vancouver in sort of odd places. It said like Museum of Personal Failure, submit, contact this email address. Also, he placed it up on Facebook Marketplace. I literally was on Facebook Marketplace, as I do, looking for deals, and saw this poster and thought, that's either a joke or could be a really good film. So I'm going to message them.
For sure.
And so message Avon and said, this is cool, but is this a joke? Is this real? Like what's going on? And he's like, nope, no joke. And so I said, well, I'm a filmmaker. This sounds cool. You want to go for coffee? And so Avon actually said, yeah, I'll go for a coffee with you. Amazing. Went for a coffee with Avon, had a really good talk. He's so interesting. I think I was really drawn to that too, because I feel like his journey to the museum is very similar to me in the film. And that's part of when I said I do a lot of stuff on my own. I mean, perhaps I'm a little bit of a control freak, but also more so it's like finance. Like sometimes there just isn't the money.
Yeah. Like you don't let that stop you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you do it yourself or it doesn't get made.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I've said this to Avon, but I kind of feel this like connection to him, because I'm like, oh, like you did this project.
Yeah.
Like how I did my project. And I understand the struggle, and we don't even know each other that well, but I feel like super proud of Avon, or just like impressed, and I don't know, I admire him because it's beautiful what he's created.
Yeah, I love the exhibition. First of all, it was jam-packed. So like it's always like, I mean, that's kind of what you want on the first day, which I chose to be there then, so I knew it was going to be a little jam-packed. I immediately got the vibe of what he was talking about, why this is important, what this means in modern society. And then when I saw the things that were submitted along with the written description, there was something about that cinched it. I mean, it was all these objects, right? But it was really, the exhibition was a bunch of stories of defeat and failure and feeling like at your lowest, and knowing that all of these people survived that and life went on. So I love work that I think makes us remember that we're pretty universal and more alike than we're different. And I also feel that with your work, with the stories that fascinate you, the people that you connect with, there's something about like I don't know, you look for people where it's like important to remind people of something like connection, failure, and moving past it and things like that. So I'll go back to the nostalgia longing part. There's something that has been there from way back when that's still making stuff now, and that's what I see. Even though I don't know you that well either, but
that's helpful. I'm trying to figure it out too. I don't know what it is. I'm just following my impulses, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the people you're drawn to, there's something like really meaty about the human spirit or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, circling back to promotion. Let's do this thing. Tell me about what's exciting, what's coming up, what's got you passionate.
Oh, I want to drop, because you have to do this as a creator, some web links.
Yes.
So aplacewhereibelong.com is our film website. We're screening this Friday at the Real Out Film Festival in Kingston, Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Then we've got a screening at McGill University sometime in February. I should know when. But what I'm excited about, because I can actually go, is Victoria, February 25th, Pink Shirt Day. We're going to have a screening. And lots of other ones. So check it out. Go to the website. And then my company website is cloudstreetmedia.com if anyone's interested.
If you need some filmmakers, you need some people on the ground, please hire Rheanna.
Yay, thank you so much. If you need a journalist, or if you need a coach, I was reading up on all your coaching work.
Thank you.
Got Robert here.
Thank you. No, it's mostly with just being with other artists, so it's all useful, honestly. So thank you for your time today. I feel like this is gonna be like this is just its own thing with you, and then maybe I'll do something with Avon that, that's a little bit separate, but
I would love that. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, but thank you for diving us into the world of like filmmaking and documentary filmmaking, because you never know, there may be someone out there who's like, I never thought about that before. So thank you for your time today, Rheanna.
Thank you so much.